The smell of jasmine tea and soy sauce had been the backdrop of my life for as long as I could remember. Golden Lotus Catering wasn't just my mother's business, it was our family's legacy, built from nothing when my parents immigrated from Taiwan 28 years ago. I'd grown up folding wontons at the prep table, learning the difference between five-spice and white pepper before I could properly hold chopsticks. At 28, I'd spent the last 5 years officially working for Mom, though I'd been unofficially helping since I was 12. I handled everything from vendor negotiations to client meetings, from menu development to crisis management when the freezer died during the Chen wedding reception. I was the one who suggested we expand into corporate catering, which now made up 60% of our revenue. I was the one who streamlined our ordering system, reducing food waste by 30%. I was the one who stayed until midnight every Friday, ensuring the weekend events would run smoothly. Jessica, my younger sister, had always been the golden child, literally and figuratively for Golden Lotus. At 25, she'd drifted through college with a communications degree, then spent 2 years finding herself through various internships and creative projects that never quite stuck. She was charming, beautiful, and had Mom's same infectious laugh. She could work a room like nobody's business, making clients feel like family within minutes. But ask her to calculate food costs or manage a timeline, and she'd get that deer-in-headlights look that somehow made everyone want to help her even more. Jessica just needs the right opportunity, Mom would say, whenever I mentioned my sister's latest career pivot. She has so much potential. I'd learned not to point out that potential without execution was just daydreaming. The meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. on a Tuesday in March. Mom had been unusually formal about it, sending me a calendar invite instead of just hollering across the kitchen like usual. "We need to discuss your future with Golden Lotus," the email read. My heart had raced with anticipation. Finally, I thought, she was going to offer me a partnership, maybe even start transitioning some ownership responsibilities to me. I'd prepared for weeks, creating a presentation about expansion opportunities, market analysis, and strategic partnerships. I'd even researched the legal requirements for changing our business structure. This was it, my moment to officially become what I'd already been in practice for years. Mom sat across from me at the small table in her office, hands folded in that way that meant she was nervous. Behind her, photos of successful events lined the walls, events I'd coordinated, menus I'd designed, crises I'd averted. The irony wasn't lost on me now. "Alex," she began, and something in her tone made my stomach drop. "I've been thinking about the future of Golden Lotus." "Me too," I said, reaching for my folder. "I have some ideas. I'm restructuring the business," she interrupted. "Jessica is going to take over your operations role." The words hit like ice water. "What?" "I'm sorry, but I have to let you go. Jessica graduated with a business degree, and she needs this opportunity more than you do. You're capable enough to succeed anywhere." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. "Mom, I've been running operations for 5 years. I've been the one. I know, and you've done wonderfully. But Jessica is family, and she needs guidance. She needs responsibility. You're strong, Alex. You'll land on your feet." The pink slip was already prepared, sitting in a manila envelope with my name on it. 2 weeks severance pay. After 5 years of 60-hour weeks, of missing dates and friendships because Golden Lotus always came first, of pouring my heart into every dumpling and every client relationship, 2 weeks severance pay. "Where is Jessica now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom's eyes darted away. She's in the kitchen, learning the prep schedule." My sister was already here, already taking over my space, my responsibilities, my life's work. The betrayal cut deeper than the firing itself. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. 5 years, Mom. 5 years of my life. You'll understand when you're a mother," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Sometimes we have to make hard choices for the good of the family." As I walked through the kitchen one last time, I saw Jessica at my desk, flipping through my meticulously organized vendor files. She looked up with what might have been guilt or excitement. I couldn't tell which. "Alex, I don't," I said, grabbing my personal items from the desk drawer. "Just don't." The jasmine tea smell that had always meant home now made me nauseous. I walked out of Golden Lotus with a cardboard box of belongings and a pink slip that had just changed everything. I spent the first 3 days after my firing in my apartment, alternating between rage and disbelief. The cardboard box sat unopened on my kitchen table like evidence of a crime. Every time I looked at it, my chest tightened with the same suffocating betrayal I'd felt in Mom's office. On the fourth day, my best friend Maya dragged me out for coffee. "You can't hide forever," she said, studying my face across the cafe table. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." The words felt foreign. I'd always known what to do, always had a plan. Maybe she's right. Maybe I can succeed anywhere. Maya's expression hardened. "Alex, you built that business. Your mother's been coasting on your innovations for years." That's when it hit me. The real scope of what had happened. This wasn't just about losing a job. This was about Mom systematically erasing my contributions while positioning Jessica as the natural heir. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through Golden Lotus's social media accounts, something I'd managed but never really monitored as observer. There it was, plain as a post from 2 months ago announcing exciting changes at Golden Lotus, featuring a photo of Jessica in chef's whites she'd never earned. Another post from last month, highlighting our new sustainable sourcing initiative. My initiative with Jessica quoted as the mastermind behind it. Post after post showcasing ideas I'd developed, innovations I'd implemented, all credited to my sister who'd barely set foot in the kitchen until last week. "She's been planning this for months," I whispered, showing Maya the posts. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I spent that night going through every document I'd saved on my personal drive. 5 years of emails, vendor contracts, client communications, financial reports I'd compiled. As Golden Lotus's de facto operations manager, I'd kept meticulous records of everything. What I discovered made my stomach turn. Mom had been cutting corners I'd never authorized, unpaid overtime for kitchen staff, listing employees as independent contractors to avoid benefits, equipment maintenance, deferred until health inspectors complained. I'd caught these issues before and flagged them, but Mom had brushed off my concerns. "We'll fix it next quarter," she'd always said. Next quarter never came. I found emails between Mom and Jessica dating back 6 months long before my firing. Jessica writing about learning the business from the ground up and implementing fresh ideas. Mom responding with enthusiasm about Jessica's natural leadership qualities and innovative thinking. They'd been planning my replacement for half a year, using my own ideas as evidence of Jessica's capabilities. The betrayal cut deeper with each email. While I'd been working 18-hour days to prepare for what I thought was my partnership discussion, they'd been plotting my departure. Jessica had known. She'd sat through family dinners, listened to me stress about work challenges, offered sympathy and advice, all while knowing she was stealing my position. But as my anger crystallized, so did my clarity. I understood the food service industry better than anyone in my family. I knew our suppliers, our clients, our competitors. I knew Golden Lotus's weaknesses, because I'd been trying to fix them for years, and I knew something neither Mom nor Jessica had considered. Most of our major contracts were coming up for renewal in the next 6 months. I opened a new document and titled it Harmony Catering Business Plan. The name came to me instantly. Golden Lotus represented the old way, cutting corners, playing favorites, succeeding despite poor management. Harmony would represent balance, quality food, fair labor practices, innovative service, and ethical business operations. Everything Golden Lotus should have been under my leadership. I spent the weekend researching business loans, commercial kitchen rentals, and licensing requirements. My savings account had $47,000, not enough to match Golden Lotus's scale immediately, but enough to start smart and small. I'd target their premium corporate clients first, the ones who valued reliability and innovation over family connection. By Monday morning, I had a complete business plan, and something else, a strategy that would expose every shortcut Mom had taken while building something better in its place. Jessica wanted to run a catering business? Fine. She'd learn what real competition looked like. I made my first call to David Kim, Golden Lotus's biggest corporate client. His company's annual holiday party contract was worth $50,000, and I knew their current contract expired in August. More importantly, I knew David had complained for years about Golden Lotus's inflexibility with dietary restrictions and last-minute changes. "Alex, I heard you left Golden Lotus. What are you up to?" "Actually, David, I'm starting my own catering company. I'd love to show you what I can offer, especially for clients with complex needs." The meeting was set for Thursday, the first domino, ready to fall. As I hung up, I thought about the non-compete clause Mom had never made me sign. In her mind, family loyalty was contract enough. She'd just learned the difference between loyalty earned and loyalty assumed. Jessica wanted my job. She could have it, but she'd learn quickly that the job was never the source of my value. I was the source of the job's value. And now I'd prove it by building something better while watching Golden Lotus crumble under the weight of its own complacency. The pink slip was still in that cardboard box, but it no longer felt like an ending. It felt like permission to stop holding Golden Lotus together and start building something worthy of my talent. The meeting with David Kim went better than I dared hope. Within 20 minutes of my presentation, he was already asking about availability for their holiday party. By the end of the hour, he'd signed a letter of intent for a 3-year contract worth. I've been waiting for someone to offer this level of customization, he said, reviewing my proposal for individualized dietary accommodations. Golden Lotus always made it feel like we were asking for miracles when we needed gluten-free options that didn't taste like cardboard. I smiled, remembering the countless times I tried to convince Mom to invest in better alternative ingredients. At Harmony, dietary restrictions aren't limitations, they're opportunities to showcase creativity. Walking out of that meeting, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: pure professional validation. No family politics, no having to prove myself despite my contributions being overlooked. Just competence recognized and rewarded. The business loan approval came through faster than expected. My credit was excellent, my business plan was thorough, and my industry experience spoke for itself. $200,000 to start, with the option to expand the line of credit as revenue grew. I found a commercial kitchen space in a shared facility downtown, cleaner and more modern than Golden Lotus's aging equipment, and a third of the rent Mom paid for her standalone location. My first hire was Maria Santos, Golden Lotus's head prep cook. She'd been with Mom for 8 years, but I knew she was frustrated with the unpaid overtime and lack of benefits. When I offered her a 20% raise, full health coverage, and a profit-sharing plan, she gave her notice the same day. I've been waiting for someone to treat kitchen staff like professionals, she said, reviewing her contract. Your mother, she's old school, she thinks loyalty means accepting whatever she offered. Next came James Wong, our former event coordinator, who'd been reclassified as a contractor to avoid benefit payments. Then Sarah Chen, no relation, our talented pastry chef who'd been passed over for promotions despite consistently innovative dessert design. Within 2 weeks, I'd recruited the core team that had actually made Golden Lotus successful. The resignations must have hit Golden Lotus hard. Jessica called me on a Friday afternoon, her voice tight with panic. Alex, what the hell are you doing? Maria just quit, and she's saying she's going to work for you. And James too? This is sabotage. It's called competitive hiring, I replied calmly. I'm offering better compensation and working conditions. If that's sabotage, then Golden Lotus has bigger problems than my new business. You can't just steal our employees. I'm not stealing anyone. I'm offering opportunities to talented people who've been undervalued. Sound familiar? The silence stretched between us. Finally, Jessica spoke again, her voice smaller. Mom's furious. She's talking about legal action. For what? I was fired. Remember? No non-compete clause, no partnership agreement, just a pink slip and 2 weeks severance. I paused, letting that sink in. Tell Mom I said good luck finding a legal basis for preventing fair competition. After hanging up, I felt a satisfaction I hadn't expected. For the first time in years, I was the one holding the power in our family dynamic. The next month blurred together in the best possible way. I landed 3 more corporate clients by the end of April, each worth significant revenue. The Morrison Tech quarterly meeting, a $35,000 contract I'd serviced for Golden Lotus for 3 years. The Riverside Hospital Foundation Gala, $45,000, and they specifically requested me after I'd saved their event 2 years prior when Golden Lotus had double-booked the venue. But the real coup was the Hartwell Industries account. Their CEO, Patricia Hartwell, had been Golden Lotus's most demanding client, requiring white glove service for their executive retreats. I knew exactly what she wanted because I'd been managing her account personally for 4 years. Alex, thank goodness, she said when I called. I was dreading having to train someone new at Golden Lotus. When can we meet about the Q3 retreat? Actually, Patricia, I've started my own company. I'd love to show you what I can offer when I'm not constrained by previous limitations. The contract was worth $80,000 annually, and Patricia signed it without hesitation. I was paying for your expertise anyway, she said. Now I get it without the family drama. By May, Harmony Catering was booking $50,000 in monthly revenue. My team was happy, my clients were thrilled, and I was finally building something that reflected my actual values and capabilities. That's when Jessica showed up at my kitchen. She looked exhausted, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. "We need to talk about what you're destroying us," she said, her voice breaking. "We've lost 6 major clients in 2 months. Mom's having to let people go. The Hartwell account was our biggest contract." I continued prepping vegetables for the next day's service, not looking up. "How's the business treating you, Jess?" "Learning a lot about operations. Don't be cruel." "I'm not being cruel, I'm being competitive. There's a difference." She slumped against the prep counter. "I know I don't deserve this job. I know you earned it, but Mom thought what? That I'd just disappear? That I'd be grateful for being discarded after 5 years of building her business?" I finally looked up, meeting her eyes. "Jessica, you didn't just take my job, you took credit for my ideas, my innovations, my relationship. For months, while I was working to make Golden Lotus better, you were planning to replace me. I didn't know she was going to fire you. I thought we'd work together." "Really? Because I have emails suggesting otherwise." Her face went pale. "You read our emails?" "I read everything, Jess. Every conversation, every plan, every credit you took for work I did. Did you really think I wouldn't notice my own ideas being rebranded as yours?" She started crying then, and for a moment, I felt the old instinct to comfort her. But then I remembered the pink slip, the months of deception, the casual dismissal of my contributions. "Here's what's going to happen," I said quietly. "I'm going to continue building Harmony Catering into the business Golden Lotus should have been. I'm going to treat my employees fairly, serve my clients excellently, and run everything above board. If that destroys Golden Lotus, it's not because I'm sabotaging you, it's because you can't compete with basic competence and integrity." Jessica wiped her eyes. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," I said, and meant it. "I don't want anything from Golden Lotus anymore. I'm building something better." After she left, I stood in my clean, well-organized kitchen, surrounded by equipment that worked properly, and employees who were paid fairly. For the first time since the pink slip, I felt truly free. The phone rang, another potential client, referred by David Kim. As I answered, I smiled. Jessica was right about one thing: I was destroying Golden Lotus. But I was doing it by building something better, one satisfied client at a time. Jessica's desperation manifested in ways I hadn't anticipated. The first sign came when David Kim called me, confusion evident in his voice. "Alex, I just got a strange call from someone at Golden Lotus claiming you stole proprietary recipes and client lists. They're threatening legal action against my company if we don't cancel our contract with you." My blood ran cold. "David, I developed those recipes myself, and I built those client relationships over 5 years. There's nothing proprietary about knowing how to cook or remembering who prefers gluten-free options." I figured it was desperation, but I wanted to give you a heads up. "They're getting nasty." After hanging up, I called my lawyer. If Jessica wanted to play dirty, I needed to be prepared. The harassment escalated quickly. Within a week, 3 of my clients had received similar threatening calls. Patricia Hartwell was furious when she contacted me. They actually had the audacity to suggest I was violating some imaginary non-disclosure agreement by working with you. I told them exactly what they could do with their threats. But the real shock came when health inspectors showed up at my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, claiming they'd received reports of unsafe food handling practices. The inspection was thorough and obviously motivated by a complaint, but they found nothing. My kitchen was spotless, my documentation impeccable, my staff properly trained. "Someone really doesn't like you," the lead inspector said as he signed off on our perfect score. "We've gotten 3 separate complaints about this facility in 2 weeks. All anonymous, all very detailed, but everything here is textbook perfect." I knew exactly who was making those calls. The sabotage attempts were clumsy but persistent. Jessica hired a private investigator to follow me, hoping to find some impropriety she could use against me. She tried to poach back my employees with desperate offers of raises Golden Lotus couldn't afford. When Maria showed me Jessica's offer, a 40% raise but no benefits and a demand she sign a non-compete clause, we both laughed. "She's offering me more money to do a worse job under worse conditions," Maria said. "Does she understand how business works?" But Jessica's most damaging move was spreading rumors in our industry circles. At the monthly Food Service Association meeting, I overheard her telling other caterers that I'd stolen trade secrets and was undercutting prices through illegal labor practices. Alex always seemed too good to be true, she was saying to Tom Martinez, who ran a competing catering company. Now we know how she kept costs so low at Golden Lotus, cutting corners on wages and safety. Tom caught my eye across the room and walked over after Jessica moved on. You know she's been saying things about you, right? I'm aware. For what it's worth, nobody's buying it. We all know Golden Lotus's reputation for flexible employment practices. You trying to pin that on you is pretty rich. The irony was painful. Jessica was accusing me of the very violations I'd spent years trying to get Mom to fix. But the rumors were having an effect. 2 potential clients pulled out of preliminary discussions, citing concerns about business practices. I was furious, but I was also strategic. If Jessica wanted to make this personal, I could play that game too. I'd been holding back the nuclear option, the documentation of Golden Lotus's actual legal violations. But watching Jessica try to destroy my reputation with false accusations while covering up real crimes made my decision easy. I called the Department of Labor first, then the Health Department, then the IRS. I have documentation of systematic wage theft, employee misclassification, and safety violations at Golden Lotus Catering, I told each agency. I tried to address these issues internally for years, but they were ignored. I think it's time for official oversight. The investigations began within days. Golden Lotus was hit with surprise inspections, audits, and interviews with current and former employees. The violations I'd documented for years were finally being examined by people with enforcement power. Jessica called me screaming, "You reported us to the government, your own family's business?" I reported illegal activity to the appropriate authorities, I said calmly. The same illegal activity I spent years asking Mom to fix. This could destroy us. Then you should have thought about that before you started breaking labor laws, and before you tried to destroy my reputation with lies. Those weren't lies. Jessica, I have recordings of your phone calls to my clients. I have copies of the false complaints you filed with the health department. I have witnesses to your defamation campaign. Would you like me to add harassment and business interference to the complaints I've already filed? The silence stretched long enough that I thought she'd hung up. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice small. I want you to stop sabotaging my business with false accusations. I want you to retract the lies you've told about my company. And I want you to take responsibility for the mess you've made of Golden Lotus instead of blaming everyone else. And if we do that, then I'll consider whether there's a path forward that doesn't involve watching Golden Lotus burn to the ground under government scrutiny. After I hung up, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and exhaustion. This wasn't how I'd wanted things to go. I'd planned to compete fairly, to prove my worth through excellence. But Jessica had forced this escalation with her desperate, unethical tactic. Mom called that evening, her voice strained in a way I'd never heard before. Alex, we need to talk. Can you come to the house tomorrow? I'm pretty busy, Mom. Building a business, dealing with harassment from my former employer, explaining to government investigators why I documented so many violations that were ignored. Please, the word was barely a whisper. I think it was the first time in my life I'd heard Linda Chen admit to being wrong about anything. The admission should have felt like victory, but mostly it just felt sad. I'll be there at 7, I said. The next evening would either be the beginning of our family's reconciliation or the final confrontation that ended Golden Lotus forever. Either way, I'd be walking into that house with all the power, something that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago when I was folding wontons and hoping for a partnership that would never come. The pink slip had freed me from being grateful for scrap. Now it was time to see if my family was ready to face the consequences of their choices. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was because I'd grown larger, not physically, but in confidence, in power, in the knowledge of my own worth. Or maybe it was because Golden Lotus's mounting problems had sucked the air out of everything my family touched. Mom sat at the kitchen table where I'd done homework 20 years ago, where I'd planned menus and calculated food costs for the last 5 years. Jessica was across from her, looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Between them sat a stack of government letters, violation notices, and audit requests. "Thank you for coming," Mom said, not quite meeting my eyes. I set my briefcase on the table and took the chair at the head, Dad's old spot, though he'd been gone for 3 years now. The symbolism wasn't lost on any of us. "You said you made a mistake," I said. "I'm listening." Mom's hands shook slightly as she reached for her tea. I thought I was helping Jessica find her path. I thought you were strong enough to succeed anywhere, so you didn't need Golden Lotus the way she did. And now, Jessica spoke up, her voice hoarse. Now we're facing $200,000 in fines and back wages. The health department is requiring equipment upgrades we can't afford. Half our staff has quit, and our client base is decimated. She looked at me with something between anger and admiration. You destroyed us. I competed with you, I corrected. The destruction was self-inflicted. I just stopped holding the pieces together. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a leather portfolio. You wanted to meet, so I assume you want to discuss solutions. I have a proposal. The contract was 30 pages long, professionally bound with tabs for each section. I'd spent 2 weeks with my lawyer crafting every clause, every contingency, every protection. It was a thing of beauty, comprehensive, fair, and absolutely ironclad. This is an asset purchase agreement, I said, sliding copies across the table. Harmony Catering will acquire Golden Lotus's equipment, recipes, client lists, and goodwill for fair market value. Jessica flipped through the pages, her eyes widening. You want to buy us out? I want to save what can be saved while there's still something worth saving. The alternative is watching Golden Lotus collapse under government investigations and lawsuits, while its reputation destroys any chance of recovery. Mom was reading the financial terms, her business mind still sharp despite everything. This valuation, it's lower than what we paid for the equipment. Its current market value for used equipment owned by a company facing significant legal liabilities, I said. I've had it professionally appraised. You're welcome to get your own appraisal, but with the violation notices on record, I doubt you'll get a better assessment. And what happens to us? Jessica asked, her voice small. I turned to the employment section. Jessica, you're offered a position as marketing and client relations coordinator. Starting salary is $45,000 with benefits and clear advancement opportunities based on performance. You'll work under my supervision for a minimum of 2 years. Under your supervision, the old Jessica, the entitled, golden child Jessica flickered to life. I have a college degree. You were running Golden Lotus into the ground, I said calmly. This offer assumes you want to actually learn the business instead of just pretending to know it. If you prefer, you can decline and find employment elsewhere. She deflated, scanning the job description. What about Mom? Linda would transition to a consulting role. 20 hours per week, helping with recipe development and traditional dish preparation. Also $45,000 annually, with the option to reduce hours as she approaches full retirement. Mom looked up from the contract. You'd still want me involved? You built this business from nothing. Your recipes are excellent. Your traditional techniques are valuable. But the management and operations, that's my expertise now. I pulled out a second document. However, there are conditions. All previous violations must be resolved. Fines paid, back wages distributed, equipment brought to code. Golden Lotus's debt obligations transfer with the purchase, but Harmony won't assume liability for ongoing government sanctions. Jessica was doing math in her head. The violations will cost more than the purchase price. Which is why this is essentially a rescue operation, not an acquisition. I'm offering you an exit strategy that preserves some dignity and provides ongoing employment. The alternative is bankruptcy, criminal charges for some of the labor violations, and complete loss of the family business. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of Mom's old kitchen clock. I watched them absorb the reality of their situation. 6 months ago, they'd dismissed me as expendable. Now I was their only lifeline. Why? Mom finally asked. After everything we did to you, why offer this? Because destroying you completely wouldn't prove anything I haven't already proven. I've built a better business, treated employees fairly, and succeeded ethically. Watching you burn doesn't add anything to that success. I paused, letting them see the person I'd become, not the grateful daughter hoping for scraps, but the businesswoman who'd turned their betrayal into triumph. But mostly because I want Jessica to understand what she tried to take from me. Working under someone who actually knows the business, learning instead of pretending, earning respect instead of inheriting it. Maybe she'll become the businesswoman you always believed she was. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Alex. I knew it was wrong, but Mom said what she needed to say to justify her choice. But you're an adult, Jessica, You made your own decisions. I softened slightly, but you can make better ones going forward. I stood up, closing my briefcase. You have 72 hours to decide. Sign the contract, resolve the violations, and we merge the businesses under Harmony Catering's management. Or reject it and face the consequences alone. At the door I turned back. For what it's worth, I hope you sign. Not because I need Golden Lotus, but because I think our family is worth saving, even if it requires a complete restructuring. As I walked to my car, I felt the weight of 6 months lifting from my shoulders. The scared, dismissed daughter who'd left this house with a pink slip was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge is offering your enemies exactly what they deserve. A chance to earn what they'd always taken for granted. The contract was fair, the terms were reasonable, and the choice was theirs. Whatever they decided, I'd already won. The pink slip had freed me to become who I was always meant to be. Now it was time to see if they were brave enough to do the same. The call came at 6:47 p.m. on the third day. I was in my kitchen, reviewing prep schedules for the weekend, when my phone buzzed with Mom's number. "We'll sign," she said without preamble. "All of us. We'll sign your contract." I set down my pen carefully. "The violations, we'll pay the fines. Use the equipment sale money and we'll take personal loans for the rest. Jessica found a lawyer who thinks we can negotiate payment plans for the back wages and the employment terms." A pause. Jessica agrees to the 2-year supervision period. She says she wants to learn the right way this time. 3 months later, Golden Lotus Catering officially became part of Harmony Catering in a merger that the local business journal called a masterclass in strategic acquisition. What they didn't know was that it felt more like adopting a wounded bird, messy, complicated but ultimately worthwhile. Jessica's first day working under me was awkward for everyone. She showed up 20 minutes early, notebook in hand, looking like a first-year intern despite being family. I assigned her to shadow Maria in prep work, learning the fundamentals she'd never bothered to master. "Why am I chopping vegetables?" she asked, after an hour. "I have a business degree." "Because you can't manage what you don't understand," I replied. "And right now, you don't understand how food gets from raw ingredients to a client's plate." She lasted 4 hours before crying in the bathroom. Maria found her there, and with more kindness than Jessica probably deserved, taught her the proper way to brunoise care. It was a small moment, but it marked the beginning of something different. The learning curve was steep. Jessica struggled with inventory management, got overwhelmed during busy prep days, and made mistakes that would have been costly if I hadn't been watching closely. But she also showed up every day, asked questions when she didn't understand something, and slowly, very slowly began to grasp the complexity of what I'd been managing for years. Mom's transition was smooth. Her consulting role played to her strengths: recipe development, traditional techniques, relationships with longtime suppliers. Working 20 hours a week, she seemed more relaxed than I'd seen her in years. The stress of daily operations had been wearing on her more than she'd admitted. "I forgot how much I enjoyed just cooking," she told me one afternoon, as we worked on updating her dumpling recipe for our new standardized portions. "Running a business made me stop loving the food." The financial integration took 6 months. Paying Golden Lotus's fines and back wages cost nearly $180,000, most of which came from personal loans that would take years to repay. But Harmony's revenue was strong enough to absorb the debt service, and the combined client base made us the largest catering operation in the city. More importantly, the ethical practices I'd built into Harmony became the foundation for everything: fair wages, proper benefits, transparent communication with clients, meticulous food safety standards. The employees who'd followed me from Golden Lotus became training leaders for the merged operation, proud to be part of something that valued their contributions. 6 months after the merger, Jessica received her first independent assignment, coordinating a corporate retreat for a tech startup. I stayed hands-off, available for questions but letting her manage the project. She was nervous for weeks, triple-checking every detail, asking for advice on everything from linens to dietary accommodations. The event went flawlessly. The client was thrilled, the food was perfect, and Jessica managed the complex logistics without a single crisis. Watching her beam with genuine accomplishment, not inherited success, but earned achievement, I felt something I hadn't expected: pride in my sister. "I get it now," she said to me afterward, "why you were so good at this, why you cared so much. It's not just about the food. It's about creating something perfect for people on their important days." The family dinners resumed gradually. At first, they were stilted affairs where we carefully avoided discussing work, but eventually we found our rhythm. Jessica would ask technical questions about menu planning. Mom would share stories about catering disasters from the early days. I would update them on new client and expansion plans. One evening, almost a year after the merger, Jessica looked up from her pad thai and said, "I need to apologize. Really apologize, not just for getting your job but for how I got it. For the emails with Mom, for taking credit for your ideas, for pretending I deserved something I'd never earned." Mom set down her chopsticks. "I owe you the bigger apology. I convinced myself I was helping Jessica, but I was really just comfortable with you being the responsible one. It was easier to give Jessica opportunities than to help her earn them, and easier to take my contributions for granted," I said, but without the anger that would have been there a year ago. "Yes, much easier." Mom's voice was quiet. "I'm proud of what you built, Alex. Not just the business success, but how you handled everything. You could have destroyed us completely." I thought about it, I admitted. For a while, watching Golden Lotus fail felt like justice. But building something better felt more like victory. 2 years after Jessica started working for me, I promoted her to operations manager, a real promotion, earned through competence and growth. She'd learned every aspect of the business, managed increasingly complex events, and developed her own innovative approaches to client relations. When I offered her the promotion, she cried again, but this time from joy rather than frustration. "I want to earn this," she said. "No shortcuts, no family favors. Just tell me what I need to do to deserve it." "You already have," I told her. "The difference is now you know why." Harmony Catering now employs 37 people across 3 kitchen facilities. We're booked solid through next spring, with a waiting list for premium dates. Industry colleagues who once viewed Golden Lotus with skepticism now study our business model. 3 culinary schools have asked me to guest lecture on ethical business practices in food service. But the real success isn't in the revenue numbers or industry recognition. It's in the family dinner, where Jessica excitedly describes her latest client challenge, where Mom shares a new recipe idea, where we plan business strategies together as equals rather than a golden child, a workhorse, and an overwhelmed matriarch. The pink slip that felt like devastation became the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to stop accepting scraps and start demanding what I was worth. It taught me that family loyalty is meaningless without family respect, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's destructive choices. Jessica keeps that contract I presented, our family's restructuring agreement, framed in her office, not as a reminder of defeat, but as evidence of growth. The woman who once thought she deserved success because of her name, now understands that the only achievements worth having are the ones you earn yourself. And I keep the pink slip in my desk drawer, not as a memento of betrayal, but as a reminder of liberation. The day I stopped being grateful for being undervalued was the day I started building something worthy of my talent. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's giving them the chance to become worthy of your forgiveness.